Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Dashen, Usman. Here are the headlines making rounds beyond the continent. Let's begin by telling you that President Joe Biden has hailed unbreakable US-Japanese ties as he greeted Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for a lavish White House summit featuring a major upgrade in defense ties against China. Biden rolled out the red carpet for the 66-year-old Kishida and his wife Yuko to underscore the importance of Japan as a bastion of the Asia-Pacific region against a resurgent Beijing. Welcoming the Japanese leader, Biden said the partnership between the two countries is unbreakable.
Today I look forward to discussing how we can even deepen it more, including increasing defense and then technology and cooperation across the board. And we can also discuss how we can continue to enhance and ensure Indo-Pacific remains a free, open, and prosperous region of the world with us standing together.
ぜひ今回の訪米において日本とアメリカのこの固い絆を確認するとともに日本とアメリカがどんな未来を築こうとしているのかこれを世界にそしてそれぞれの国に対してつまり内外に向けて示す貴重な機会にしたいと思います。
In the meantime, U.S. President Joe Biden says he believes Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making a mistake in his handling of Gaza. Bearing his mind on the onslaught on Gaza during an interview with journalists, the U.S. leader said he does not agree with Netanyahu's approach. He said Gaza should have total access to all food and medicine for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Last week, Biden warned that ongoing U.S. support for the war depended on Israel allowing in more food and medicine. Israel has denied impeding the entry of aid or its distribution inside Gaza and has accused UN agencies on the ground of failing to get the aid that is allowed into the people who need it. Joining us now to give us a bit more on this story is our international correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua, how is the United States' stance towards Israel changing at the moment?
Well, these are very strong words from President Joe Biden in this interview that was actually recorded last week on Wednesday. It was only a couple of days after those 7 aid workers from World Central Kitchen were killed by that attack by the Israeli Defense Force. And Joe Biden said that it was outrageous that the aid organization's vehicle had been hit by drones and taken out on a highway. That's a direct quote from him. Now, the IDF said it was a grave mistake, but he has also been very critical of the way that Israel is handling this war in Gaza. And, you know, Israel and America have always been very, very close. They've always had a very close relationship. But President Biden is facing increasing domestic pressure over the past few weeks. And because of that, he has sharpened his rhetoric, including towards Benjamin Netanyahu personally, towards the war, towards this cause that Israel have of completely getting rid of Hamas. Now, President Biden has said that it is ridiculous that Gaza cannot get the aid that it needs, that Israel is stopping the aid getting in that it needs. But of course, we know that the flow of weapons has been uninterrupted in this time also. And he's also faced pressure and questions over the amount of weapons and arms that are being sold to Israel. He's contemplating an $18 billion arms deal at the moment. So his rhetoric is changing. He is becoming increasingly harsh towards Israel and perhaps distancing himself from being this kind of right-hand man of Benjamin Netanyahu. And that domestic pressure, of course, will only increase as we go towards the election in November.
All right. Afua, officials actually say that the president's stance on Israel is not enough. What more can Biden do?
Yeah, that's right. You have had officials in state offices in America voicing their concerns, even some of them leaving their jobs because of this war in Gaza and because of the United States stance. Like I said, Joe Biden facing increasing pressure over Israel. There's been questions over the amount of arms that are being sold to Israel. Perhaps it is far too many. This $18 billion deal, does it need to be done? And so when you have had Joe Biden under increasing pressure, he's had these quite harsh phone calls with Benjamin Netanyahu. After one of these phone calls last week, you had Israel saying it would open the Erez crossing in northern Gaza, and part of a port in southern Gaza, so the aid could come in as well. And that was on the back of a phone call from Mr. Biden. So he is being more harsh towards Benjamin Netanyahu, and that is having some small effects. But I think it could be over Rafah, where we could see President Biden really being much more strict and much more harsh with Israel if this attack on Rafah goes ahead. And we know that Israel said that there is a date for that. We don't know what that date is, but they know, the IDF know the date for that invasion of Rafah. Now, if that goes ahead without civilians being properly warned and being properly secured, then we could see President Biden taking more stringent action against Israel, and there could be consequences for Israel in that sense.
All right, now we've also heard in the past couple of hours that the son of a Hamas commander have been killed. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. Breaking news in the past few hours that Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh has accused Israel of killing 3 of his children in what he says is the spirit of revenge and murder. He said that the criminal enemy is driven by the spirit of revenge and murder and does not value any standards or laws. He's also said that these killings will not pressure Hamas into softening its negotiating position. Now, he is quite high up in Hamas, the head of the political bureau, and he's based between Doha, as he is now in his 70s. But his 3 sons, he says, this is according to him, he told Al Jazeera that his sons were martyred on the road to liberating Jerusalem, and the Al-Afua mosque, and there was apparently there was some children in that convoy as well. Like I said, he said that this will not deter Hamas, that they will carry on with their operations and carry on with what they're doing. But this is quite a high-profile killing of the sons of a Hamas commander.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Afua Hagan, for that update. Now, moving away from that, women in the Pakistani city of Multan marked the end of Ramadan with Eid al-Fitr prayers and a family meal. But the celebrations on Wednesday were overshadowed by the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip and Israel's threatened ground offensive in the southernmost city of Rafah, with no let-up in the 6-month war. In Istanbul, thousands of worshippers gathered at the Hagia Sophia Mosque for morning Eid prayers, some carrying Palestinian flags and chanting slogans in support of the people in Gaza.
यहाँ पर हम हर साल आते हैं नमाज़ पढ़ने ईद की इसी मस्जिद में सब फैमिली यहाँ पर आती है नमाज़ पढ़ने के लिए फिर नमाज से फारिग होकर ईद वगैरह मिलते हैं सब फिर मिलके अपने घरों में जाते हैं घर जाके खाना वगैरह बनाते हैं यही ईद की खुशियाँ वगैरह होती हैं
आज ईद का दिन है ईद का दिन बहुत खुशी का दिन होता है इस दिन हम तैयार होके नए कपड़े पहन के ईद की नमाज़ अदा करने जाते हैं ईद की नमाज़ अदा करके एक दूसरे से ईद मिलते हैं गले मिलते हैं फिर घर पे खाने बनाते हैं अपने दोस्तों और अपने घर वालों के साथ मिलकर खाना खाते हैं और ईद को सेलिब्रेट करते हैं
आज ईद का दिन है ईद का दिन बहुत खुशी का दिन होता है इस दिन हम सजते संवरते हैं ईद की नमाज़ पढ़ते हैं और अपने दोस्तों के साथ घूमने जाते हैं उनसे ईद मिलते हैं अपने बड़ों से ईदी लेते हैं हमें बहुत मज़ा आता है इस दिन और हम बाहर भी घूमने जाते हैं हम इस दिन को
Beyond the Continent resumes after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The parents of a teenager who carried out a deadly school shooting in the U.S. state of Michigan were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison in an unprecedented and closely watched case. Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, James, who bought their son the gun as a Christmas present, were the first parents of a school shooter to be convicted of manslaughter in the United States for the actions of their child. Oakland County Judge Cheryl Matthews sentenced them to 10 to 15 years in prison, each with credit for the 28 months they have already spent behind bars.
I believe that the following sentences would be in the best interest of justice and are reasonable and proportionate to the seriousness of the matter and the circumstances surrounding each defendant. With regard to Jennifer Crumbley, it is the sentence of this court, Ms. Crumbley, that you serve 10 to 15 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections. You will have credit for 858 days. State costs are $272. There's a crime victims' rights fee of $130. You and your agents may not have any contact with the families of Madison Baldwin, Tate Meir, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling. I will issue another ruling with regard to contact with your son, the shooter. Excuse me. As to defendant James Crumbley, it is the sentence of this court that you serve 10 to 15 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections, that you receive credit for 858 days, that you pay state costs in the matter of $272, that there is a crime victims' rights fee of $130, that you or your agents have no contact with the families of Madison Baldwin, Tate Meir, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro and his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolas Maduro have met at the Miraflores Palace in Caracas to discuss political and military peace in both countries. Their focus was on peace talks with armed military groups in Colombia. It also comes a week after Petro referred to the disqualification of opposition candidates in Venezuela's July 28th presidential election as an undemocratic coup.
Estará lista, dispuesta y a la orden de usted y de ustedes para ayudar más allá de lo que se pueda, más allá del más allá, a construir la paz de Colombia. Porque la paz de Colombia es la paz de Venezuela.
Y Colombia puede ayudar mucho en la paz política, en la estabilidad política que hemos propuesto que se pueda lograr en toda Sudamérica. La paz política en Venezuela puede ser también la paz armada en Colombia. Y en eso pues hay un terreno por construir rápido, urgente.
The news returns after the break. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us. Now, NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg on Wednesday said Ukraine simply cannot wait for more air defenses as Kyiv pleads with Western allies to step up deliveries to stave off Russia's attacks. NATO countries last week promised they would look into their inventories after Kyiv begged for more Patriot air defense systems capable of shooting down Russian ballistic missiles. Moscow has ramped up its aerial bombardments on Ukraine's infrastructure in recent weeks, with President Vladimir Zelensky saying the Kremlin was aiming to drive people from second city Kharkiv. Kyiv's desperate appeals for new support come as its outgunned forces are struggling to hold back Russia's military along the front line.
Delays in funding are having direct consequences on the ground every day. Delays in delivery of air defenses will allow Russian missiles to hit more targets, and delays in delivery of ammunition will allow Russia to press along the front line. Ukraine simply cannot wait. It needs air defenses, ammunition, and aid now.
The EU Parliament on Wednesday adopted a contentious reform of Europe's asylum policies that will harden broader procedures and force all the bloc's 27 nations to share responsibility. The parliament's main political groups overcame opposition from far-right and far-left parties to pass the new Migration and Asylum Pact, a sweeping reform nearly a decade in the making. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called the new rules a historic, indispensable step for the European Union. EU Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson said the bloc will be able to better protect their external borders, the vulnerable and refugees, swiftly return those not eligible to stay, and introduce mandatory solidarity between member states. 10 pieces of legislation in the overhaul were passed.
D'un travail complexe et exigeant, et presque 10 ans après la crise migratoire des réfugiés syriens, nous sommes devant un vote capital pour enfin réformer le système européen d'asile et de migration. Ce pacte, c'est un ensemble cohérent, complémentaire de textes pour répondre enfin, en européen, aux défis migratoires. Nous défendons. Ces différents instruments législatifs permettront à l'Union européenne d'être mieux préparée pour répondre aux principaux enjeux de l'immigration. Ce pacte ne résoudra pas tout, mais c'est un pas en avant, un pas de géant vers un réel contrôle et une bonne gestion humaine de l'immigration en France, en Europe et sur notre continent.
Migration is about human beings. It's about men, women and children. And when our migration policy fails, human beings pay the price. It's time to fix our broken migration policy.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping told former Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou on Wednesday that external interference will not stop the reunification of the island and the mainland as the two met in Beijing. Former President Ma headed to China last week for what he called a journey of peace to calm tensions with Beijing, which claims Taiwan as its own territory and has never announced the use of force to bring the self-ruled island under its control. On Wednesday afternoon, General Secretary Xi Jinping met with a delegation headed by Ma Ying-jeou in Beijing. The discussions mark a rare meeting between current or former leaders in Beijing and Taipei, and the first since a landmark cross-strait summit between the two men in 2015.
两岸同胞都是中国人，没有什么心结不能化解，没有什么问题不能商量，没有什么势力能把我们分开。海峡的距离阻隔不断两岸同胞的骨肉亲情，制度的不同改变不了两岸同属一个国家、一个民族的客观事实。外部的干涉阻挡不了家国团圆的历史大势。两岸同胞一路走来，始终一脉相承，心手相连。
And it's a wrap on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.